Hello guys, here I am with the first part. Foundation of the Black Flock McWismer Criminal Association. The first part, at this point, it is not clear at all. Will there be the Black Flock? Are we allowed to do this? Do we even want to ask anyone? And the name is not even remotely fixed. We are in such a kind of fallen into a vacuum empty space. Yes, somehow the last experience from the series, entry rocker milieu, then this fight with these serious injuries, again in this environment of right-wing extremists, skinhead hung out. I had, of course, not yet distanced myself, yes. Not in terms of content, I had not worked anything out said. So yes, now all of a sudden I want to be a good person. We are far away from that. But I had, I think the greater rejection was, first of all, I did not want to have anything to do with most of the people from the club that disgusted me, and not the worldview disgusted me, but rather how they were as guys. Now, of course, one could say, yes, what were you like as a person? Absolutely disgusting. But despite that, I felt like we needed some kind of subcultural social rise in the city. I didn't want to just hang out with them from Friday to Sunday and then yell along to some Nazi music. I didn't want that anymore. I had also gotten a taste of this rocker scene, as I said, and we wanted to stick with that. But how to do it and with whom? It wasn't that easy because even in this scene, in this milieu, there are unwritten rules, so to speak. Yes, so I can't just go to Bielefeld, Hamburg, or whatever, Dortmund, Bremen, Leipzig. Yes, you can imagine. Can I just drive there and then find 10 good buddies and then we call ourselves oh God, I always come up with names. No, so the funny 10 motorcycle club with a patch in the middle and then maybe even Dresden at the bottom or Bielefeld or something. Yes, and you form yourself and then do Clubhouse and think you are accepted. Yes, you can do it that way, but it can also massively backfire. Because, of course, in this rocker scene, there is a territorial claim. This is mainly, of course, with a one percenter. I like to refer to a one percenter as those who are in a motorcycle club. Whole clubs can decide for themselves. Individuals within the clubs can also decide for themselves. They then also have the one percenter patch on who move outside the societal rules, norms, and so on. That doesn't necessarily mean they are criminal, and I can't repeat it often enough here. Not all motorcycle clubs are criminal per se, neither the big ones nor the small ones. Some chapters and charters of certain organizations are fundamentally criminal, while others generally resist. However, many also take this 1% sign to then show that they count themselves among these people. This is due to historical reasons, I believe, from the American Motorcycle Association, who once said, yes, only 1% of motorcyclists are criminal, and they then turned this around and used this 1% patch for themselves to say, yes, I am one of these 1%. They often have a territorial claim, which means if they are there, then, or there might be two clubs, they have an agreement that they both are there. A new one can't just come in. And then there are also certain rules. Yes, of course we dealt with that. We had already been active in the motorcycle scene for about 10, 11 months. And we knew, okay, you have to announce some kind of foundation. Then in consultation with the clubs around, and then there should also be 6 founding members, so 6 full members. I believe the Gremium Motorcycle Club always has 7 founding members. I may have made a mistake here. I don't claim to always have the wisdom of the ages. It's from my memory and what we had then set out to do. So we knew, okay, we would or should now also found ourselves with 6 full members. In Wismar, a city with 50,000 inhabitants, there wasn't much happening yet. It's not a particularly large or exciting population. I don't even want to claim that, but for me, it's about giving you an insight into how it went there. The committee had dissolved everything there. Then there was committee prospect. Then there was bed 7 and so on. Everything was dissolved. It was all a real mess. Then there were motorcycle friends, Black Paradise, yes, who then I think were another level and that support were or whatever, but felt close to the committee, then had such a logo, but they had a cool clubhouse and they hung out there, but there was no one there where I would have said he could have stolen a marble from me or something. So it was very clear that we are the landlords there and they will not interfere with us. However, there were some concerns. So, okay, we have to, if we do something now, we should be conspiratorial first. One thing we learned now, and that we were also the gossip crew in Rostock. Main thing, chatter. We learned one thing, we should keep it to ourselves first. If anyone hears anything about this matter again, then people will come from all possible corners and will try to talk us out of it, try to integrate us somewhere else, try to sell us something else. That means we first have to secretly create a structure, and we are there with a bang. So simply that we say, okay, now we are here, we are so and so many people, we have this area, we claim, and whoever wants something now should come then. The question, of course, is who's in. It was very clear those who were previously with the Red Devils in Rostock, they are in. Of course, at the forefront was Christian, the tattoo artist. Then there was Richie, who was also in Rostock, and Toman, who had been with me for a very, very long time. All 3 were previously also in the Comradeship Werewolf, and then myself. The 4 people were set. We then had such a meeting in Christian's apartment where it was also said, okay, we 4 stay together. Yes, sworn in as a group, we stick together. We want this. We want to stay on the motorcycle track. And we have to come up with something, how we now build something of our own. There were, I think, short discussions about, yes, are there perhaps other possibilities to join something else? And we had said no, because now in Rostock there were 2-3 acquaintances at that time, which should later become friendships, which we have saved over and said, no, now we should actually try to do something of our own. Really, it doesn't matter, and then we are independent, we can make our own rules, we don't have to drive around somewhere where we don't want to go and try to pull it off like that. There was also a change in Rostock, we will get to that in a moment if I don't forget, but now we are 4. Not enough. It's also somehow such an embarrassing foundation, and one thing was very important to us, we somehow wanted to be recognized for our foundation. Yes, we didn't want to start and say, yes, you can't start a motorcycle club with 2, 3, 4 people and then put that on the... Somehow that would be a bad start. We didn't want that. We wanted to establish ourselves internally and conform to the scene, so to speak. Everything went right. Okay, 4 of us. At this point, nothing was set in stone yet. Name, who gets which offices, rules, nothing at all. We hadn't even sat down together yet. It was just the decision, okay, we 4 stick together, yes, who else do we bring along? Who can, so to speak, be a founding member? It always sounds like, when probably people hear this and think they have nothing to do with the motorcycle scene, with the rocker scene, they think, my goodness, how seriously do they take themselves? Yes, officers, name, and founding members and so on. But for the people who are in it, and it was for me too, it's deadly serious. It's not something that it's accepted to be laughed about. It was the same for me. I took it very, very seriously. I committed very, very serious crimes for this matter. And for many, it's a big deal to hold an office there, to be a founding member, or to be accepted in the scene. It's a hyper masculine thing, which I think you can only understand. Hashtag I know if you were there yourself, what it triggers in one. So, and yes, okay, we four are definitely founding members. Yes, where to get new people. Yes, what remains. I really had to deal with it briefly because we at the beginning also, and we will come to that quite quickly, we also had a certain fluctuation in the black crowd afterwards. Many imagined that it would be very easy with us, but with us it was very, very strict, very many rules, a high demand for willingness to perform towards the club. One must first consider who was even founding there. Yes, it is Wild Day people also. My brain plays tricks on me, but I have so much visual material, a little support. Gave, okay, we four where to take from the comradeship who wolf we really had. We didn't feel like being pushed into the right corner to found something. I know we were then called the first German neo-Nazi motorcycle club and so on. And then there was an article, Taz and whatever. So now also back then, and we didn't want that. Of course, in my retrospect today, some will have saved the ideology even today. Today, after the ban, someone I believe has gone back to the extreme, extremely right again, and yes, but never outwardly, and it should never play a role internally for us. In my opinion, it never did. So I'm always careful with never, but there was not a political or xenophobic conversation, in my opinion, where I was part of the Black Horde. I know it's unbelievable for many, but I was there, and there's no reason for me. I could also say yes, there was something right wing for 2 or 3 years, and then not, or whatever. But a lot. So three of the four founding members, at least, it was important to them. The one, yes. Okay, but we also didn't want the comradeship Werewolf to find out that we were trying to pull out two members again. They also needed their people to pay for their clubhouse, to have manpower, and so on. And of course, conversations had to be held about this. Okay, how did something like that go? If I'm here now, then we wanted to pull Ditsche over with us. Ditsche was heavily convicted before, had also served a prison sentence in open custody for violent crimes. But he was a bit, I don't want to say nerdy, but he could handle the computer and was quite a decent fellow. He wasn't someone where I would say that there comes the 3 meter tall, 3 meter wide guy around the corner, and then we called him and said, hey, we have a question and we want to have a conversation. Come by our tattoo shop. I was still running the tattoo shop at that time in Wisman, ABC Street, Niederloch Pain. And we said, come by. And then, yeah, okay, we were still all intertwined. We were still somehow friends, brothers, comrades, a mix of that, but everything not very deep, yes. And he comes to the tattoo shop, and then you say, yes, you know, Red Devils, that's done now, and so on. And watch out, we have an idea here. We want to start our own motorcycle club. He immediately says, yes, I'm in. Just a quick own thing. If you want to support us, my book is out, Hate Makes Violence, Games, bestseller, the brand behind the product, King Among the Kongs. Check it out. Under the video, there are many links. How you can support us in our work, the radicalization, anti-violence work on the internet and or at schools, so many possibilities. Thumbs up, thumbs down, comment, all that helps. Many thanks, and ahoy, video continues. No big discussion about rhetoric. Immediately tells and says, watch out. We would imagine that you also become a founding member. You have the possibility financially to get a motorcycle. And there was immediately talked internally. I had started with a 1400 Intruder Suzuki. I had then sold on to Christian, the tattoo artist. I had then got a Harley Davidson Fat Bob, The intruder then went on from Christian, the tattoo artist, to Ditcher. He then took over the intruder, and Christian got a Harley relatively quickly, I believe. Yes, I believe he also switched to Harley. Okay, and then we said, yeah, we thought that you would somehow take over as secretary. We were still on the trip then, that we all officers take over as is customary in the motorcycle scene. These are the offices, of course, president, vice president, sergeant at arms, treasurer, secretary, and road captain. President leads the club together with the vice president. So president and deputy. But the sergeant at arms is also responsible. Yes, it always is. In the media, it is sometimes said he is responsible for the club's armament or something like that. Of course, this is a bit exaggerated in the media, sounds more important. The sergeant at arms, that's why it's called that, sergeant at arms. So arms, armament, so weapons. Yes, weapons. But it's primarily about order and discipline in the club. Of course, it can also be used in dispute discussions within the club, with other clubs. It's a very important function within the club. Of course, there's the secretary who is responsible for the correspondence within the club, invitations, everything around it, managing all organizational matters within the club. Then there's the treasurer, who is essentially the cashier, who manages the cash register of the clubhouse, the membership fees, the financial matters, things that are bought and sold, everything possible. Also a very important and underestimated position. If it doesn't work or the person has sticky fingers, then we've also experienced in the club, it becomes difficult. And of course, we then have the road captain who is responsible for the outings. Before driving away, we had the ride order. I believe it is also standard like this. So the road captain plans the plans, the outings, also checks on all their motorcycles have and so on. Is quite funny, and his motorcycle ran as good as never, had that. So typical, because the motorcycle ran as good as never, was unrideable, and oh come on, well whatever, I will be brought back hard. Straight in driving order was with us. Road captain, he then drives front right, then left offset. From there drives the president, then right offset again the vice president. Behind that the sergeant at arms, and then behind that the secretary, and then the normal members drive. Then the prospects drive behind them. Behind them drive the hangarounds, and behind them drive the supporters, and behind them drive the regular visitors of the club. I know, guys, what you might be thinking now, some who have nothing to do with it, but this is strictly adhered to. So if someone just pushes their way into the middle and then rides along and so on, wow, that can lead to nasty, nasty surprises. This is taken with the utmost seriousness. In any case, Ditcher, the supposed secretary, is excited. We say, dude, first of all here, we don't want any information to leak as we are already a group of 5. Then we definitely need someone else. And as strange as it sounds, one could now assume in such a club, you form and say, okay, we take the 10 toughest we can find and form this club. But it doesn't bring much. Many clubs that have been founded, and also the ones I have met, and if there are 10 alpha males pumped full of testosterone, power claim, greed for money, hyper masculine, then it will not work, then the thing will fail. As strange as it sounds, you also need a certain mix of people. Doesn't the idea of diversity in biker clubs sound amusing? Yes, I have to smile at that myself. And that's why we didn't really look at who we were pulling out, but rather looked a bit at skills, like with Ditcher. Then we also approached Popeye. He was also in the werewolf comradeship. In my opinion, he was in the werewolf comradeship. I believe he was never really politicized. I believe he wasn't even right-wing. So he was actually more interested in car tuning, had a lowered Golf, always went to Volkswagen and Audi meetings. He then somehow lived at home for a long time. So quite, yes. So yes. So more like, I don't want to say up to farmer, not so great in terms of women. I don't want to devalue him there, but actually had very little to do with such violence and hate and so on in his head. But many of his friends were in this comradeship and he was part of it. And he always had himself tattooed with completely different things where he had tattoos done. He didn't get the Wolf's Angel and other right wing symbols tattooed. He was still part of it though. He also adopted their style of clothing, wore certain right wing brands and their t shirts. But I don't think he ever really got into politics. The advantage with him was that everyone liked him as he wasn't constantly filled with hate. Yes, you could simply like Popeye. Nice guy, somehow trapped, who also wanted to get recognition and such from, yes, his circle of friends and acquaintances. Very similar to me and was then also trapped in it, but was just a funny guy. You could laugh with him, everyone liked him. When he came in, no one rolled their eyes and so on. And then we also approached him, and a similar process as well. And here it did not have convincing, no persuasion was needed there because we didn't want that either. When starting a new club, you have to convince people to join by pleading with them. Yes, then it's already going wrong. You have to see right away. Yes, I somehow feel like it. Yes, because we wanted people to be passionate about it, because we, of course, wanted to do something really crazy. And yes, it was more about the things, okay, what would I have to do? And yes, motorcycle and so on, finance that. We just had the problem that the shipyard in Wismar went bankrupt again in between. I don't know how much this country, Mecklenburg, Western Pomerania, has already put into this shipyard in Wismar. There were now owners from, I don't know, all over the world, and they all skimmed money off the state government. I don't know. The company went bankrupt again, announced short time work, and planned to lay off all employees. Of course, it was a difficult time to start a motorcycle club and finance it because at that time, not everyone was involved in crime. That needs to be said very clearly. I think only I was involved with crime and maybe Richie, but not necessarily with great style even now. Actually, it was only me. And therefore, financing motorcycles and the lifestyle was, of course, not that easy. We then said he should become the treasurer, he should manage the club's cash. Of course, we also said it's not much work, collects the club fees once at the beginning of the month. If something needs to be paid, he pays it, keeps a receipt, and maintains a cash book. While it may sound easy to keep a cash book, it can already hint at potential trouble. It already smells like trouble, I can assure you. There was also rather money, the brotherhood, and the friendship. Friendship, okay. We were now six, and we thought, okay, we might need to bring someone else in. And we did that. It was someone who hung around the comradeship werewolf from time to time, was also present at the founding discussion back then, but I think he wasn't allowed to because of his then girlfriend. So it sounds there was something a bit softer, yes, and he often hung around at parties and such. And we thought he would still fit in well in terms of his type. We had celebrated together a few times now and said, man, we could have someone with us who wasn't previously in the comradeship werewolf. I believe I have that, but I must admit I sometimes explain it incorrectly. So I know now where I was caught, but I think I once claimed that half half were founding members and comradeship werewolf and the other half were not. I think I have resolved this here. That is not the case. In any case, we also wanted to address a person as a founding full member who was not associated with the comradeship werewolf. We then included 2 prospects who were not in the comradeship werewolf, but the quota is still not correct. We then called him and he said, yeah, man, do you feel like coming over for a beer at Christian's again? He wrote back now, why again? Because we had never invited him privately before. Yeah, and then we were sitting in the apartment. It was only Christian Klaus, who this is about. Let's call him Klaus. I have to change the names a bit. I have to think a bit until I'm in the series so I don't get sued here. So, and then we had invited Klaus to talk to him. And I was there, and then we had talked to him, and then said, so yes, very subtly, that's how you do it. So subtly. So then, yes, so hey, man, you know, we were here with the Red Devils. Everything is settled, and great thing, really fun, and so on, and want to do something new, and talked around the hot porridge. At one point, he asked what it's all about. Yes, could you imagine? Don't you feel like joining us if we start something new here? Let's just say Klaus wasn't so easily persuaded. He wasn't like, yeah, right away. And he still had a few brain cells left to say, yes, okay, how do you guys imagine this? What would my role or responsibilities be with you guys? And yes, I would have to get a motorcycle. The problem is with the shipyard. So we had, I believe, 3 people at the shipyard at the beginning, 3 or 4 people. And we said, yes, we have already spoken with this and that person. And we are now 6, and we thought that you might still be interested in being a founding member. You also mentioned advantages, like not having to go through a prospect period. As founding members, you're the cool ones from the beginning, as strange as that may sound. And yes, of course, there were questions and so on, and we thought so, yes. And then we told him, well, I said so, yes, Toman is also involved, but Toman always ran like this, like this, like this, I say so, ran like this, I say so. And so we said, well, we would need a sergeant at arms who is there for discipline, and we thought of you, whether you would not take over. And then, of course, there was a bit of skepticism. Okay, am I for that? The right man for it. And I don't know. Am I deep enough in it? And I say yes, can deal with it on the internet, read the biker news and so on. And then you get into the topic, and we will also talk about it. The others grow into it too. We can tell a lot. And then we just start a motorcycle club on learning by doing, and we stick to the rough rules, and then we will bite through. One thing we will definitely do, we will be tough. That is definitely what we have written on our flags. And he also agreed relatively quickly. And then there should also be a very quick meeting of everyone. So these 7 people, where it should then be about, okay, who else might we take as a prospect to start with? And what do we call ourselves? When do we say it? How do we publish it? And how far are we willing to go? But first, something completely different was supposed to come around the corner, namely the sturgeon from Rostock of the Hells Angels. Sorry, the camera turns off after 30 minutes. In the next part is about, it's also about the sturgeon, the sergeant of the Hells Angels, what problems come back and how it continues, and what problems we faced and how we then did everything. Guys, you know what? I'll tell you that in the next part. And as always, I remain with an ahoy from the coast.